Hey, howdy, hey. We are going to be continuing this project for tonight. All right, just a second. All right, wonderful. Fresh this over here. Then should be good to go. All right, so anyway, we ended off last stream by with this animation. Not quite there yet, but now we're in the process of trying to refine that animation. Well, now I need a way to cover up the fact that our duck doesn't have feet. That means I need an object out in front, probably a box of some kind. I could have a chair, but those chairs I really don't like. And a box is relatively simple. Actually, I might be able to just import one. This would be a cheat. Nope, we're not doing that. We're gonna make it. I've made several boxes before, so this shouldn't be too terribly hard. We can use stock textures, though. Why can I not separate this? Split. That was it. Wait a minute. Oh, no duh. That's why I was pressing. All right, here we go. Greetings there, Bastion. How you doing? Feeling even better than yesterday? Alright, so that is good for there, but now we need some extra boards over top of it. Yeah, a bit tired. Understandable, sir. Hopefully it gets easier and easier as time goes on. Yep. Alright, so we want to now duplicate this, move it over here, and now I'm going to do that the other way too. This is a special type of duplicate where we are preserving the data of the objects here. So by doing this, we have the ability to now have it where we make alterations to one and it alters all of them. So I want to come in here and do some sculpting. Sculpting dynamic mesh. Now what is the tool I'm looking for? Okay, yeah, this looks like it's it. Trim. Just by rounding off the edges a little bit, it starts to feel a lot more natural. I can also add in some scrapes. Inertia comes in and says first, but Bastion beats you to it. Just over on the YouTube side. "20 seconds before you hear anything." Aha. Oh, those stupid ads. I tried to get rid of them. I tried to get rid of the ads. I signed the document that said no more ads, and for a while that was kind of true. The ads were very minimal. Now they're back. But you missed, Inertia. You missed by about 5 minutes, because see, the difference is that on the YouTube side, Bastion already appeared. It was just this close. How you doing tonight, Inertia? How is the day gone? I watched Esports World Cup twice. Oh, what game? I used to watch quite a bit of esports. I don't remember the how long ago it's been since then, but since I watched them, but it was a while ago that I got to see those. Okay, what is going on here? We want to subtract. Oh, dynamic polygon was turned off. Oh, interesting. That's not quite what I was hoping it would do. So I guess we're just back to using the crease. Inertia says, "Well played, Bastion." Emma just got the numbers. Oh no, that was the ads. Oh, it was 30 seconds long. Ah, that was it. Now that we have this, we can crease this so it's nice and sharp. Oh. He's just supposed to break up the silhouette a little bit. And now, the goal is to flatten contrast, I think. That's really not what I was hoping it would do. I guess the crease was just way too big. Got a pinch. Okay, that's closer to what I was imagining. I'm not very good when it comes to sculpting. I know many other people that are much better at sculpting. Sculpting drives me crazy. There's some people, they can do a sculpt like it's nothing. Anyways, just got home from my main 9-to-5. Our CEO made $200 million from terminating 145 employees and losing 400,000 clients. You know, our age is going to be remembered by many, 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 many terms. The term I've been using, for the most part, is an age of madness. What just happened there is madness. People are killing their own legacy. All for a few extra dollars. They're acting like everybody is part of a... we're just going to get rid of that. That was not looking good. Everyone's acting like they're part of some sort of GTA game. And they're doing some horrible, horrible things. It's like they're trying to get high numbers for everything. And it's like, buddy, there's a lot of problems if you go about in that sort of way. If you're like Bob Iger, like I mentioned about last night, when you're trying to get rid of all your employees so you can be able to hire people that are going to be underpaid and treated like dirt, and you're just going to throw your main employees out, that's cruel. And honestly, people like that are going to reap a horrible consequence one day. There is a story that is mentioned about in the New Testament, and it's told by Christ. And he mentions about the difference of people with wealth and excess and those that have none. And he mentions a very bleak outlook for what's going to happen to people who are abusive with their funds. The story of Lazarus and the rich man. A rich man is living in the lap of luxury, and there is a poor man at his gate. Now, you have to remember, in their culture, that would have made it basically a part of his responsibility. But he let his dogs eat better. He let his dogs eat better than the poor beggar. And one day, both of them perished. The man who was poor ended up being given comfort and ease in the afterlife. The man from rich means ended up suffering immensely, to the point of where a single drop of water on the tongue was all he begged for. a single drop of water. That's misery. Now, that's supposed to shell shock us and say, you know what? This is the consequences of sin. This is the consequences of evil. Should we not pay attention to it? What does it cost a person who has it all to just show some compassion? But yet, rich people have proven time and time again that they're not really thinking about their own legacy, let alone their eternal legacy. Even their own families aren't treated well in many, many cases. So I'm just left baffled. I'm baffled at the corruption. I'm baffled at the stupidity. But that's why I refer to this as part of an age of madness. Now, it's not just the people that are on top. There's a lot of madness in the lower classes too. Drugs are, in my opinion, one of the biggest forms of madness that you can have. Abuse. Doesn't matter what background you come from, you can be abusive. But that's why age of madness. In an age where you can come back and suddenly discover that your child has one summer decided that they don't want to be called little Timmy anymore, and comes back and he's mutilated. Someone decides that in order to keep peace, they're going to cause pain. Or someone else who decides that in order to love someone, you have to be able to allow them to suffer, even though you could help them. Many, many things that make me say an age of madness. And I don't know if it has any potential of ending anytime soon. It's infuriating to me that there are so many people in this world that are just blindly going along life and not thinking about the consequences to our actions. Now, there are actions that we can do that don't always that are not always clear if it is right or wrong. But there are many others that are fairly clear. Sometimes we still decide to do the wrong despite knowing better. That wood is pretty really old looking, but it's still gonna work. All right, so we're gonna add no, I don't want that. Oh yeah, let's see here. Wooden boards. And project from view. Now come over here to the editor. There we go. She probably intends to buy a few more boats. Oh, I think she's planning around 3 of layoffs in 2026. Our virtual assistants are replacing junior positions, and our metrics just got higher. That's ridiculous. Oh, sorry, that's the case. Man, that is... It's just so much nonsense. How can that person be so ridiculous? That's going to be good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect for this. I'm still mind blown to the amount of money. I'm here grinding the gears in the company for a scrap and seeing the big boss man getting paid for banishing a lot of people into unemployment. My math is not mathing. It's so ridiculous. So, there was a company, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a shipping company. I got to hear about this in the early, like 2013 was when I first heard about this. It was a company that decided that they were not happy with the products that they were making, with the product margins that they were making. And so they had a very sneaky way of that they were going to dissolve the company and basically make a killing in doing so. They fired all their people, destroyed the company, pulled out everything, and 3 guys made fortunes. The US government got involved because it was such a big problem. One of the men took his own life. Another man got caught, and another man tried to escape, and he also got caught. I don't know who we deceive when we are like, hey, no one's going to care about this. No one's going to notice. The law is not going to care about it. What about your neighbors? What about your own family? What sort of legacy are you leaving to them? Oh, but we made a whole lot of money. Now we can finally move to Tahiti and, we'll be far away from everything. You're not free from consequences of your decisions. There's eternal consequences. And that's the one bit of comfort that people can have, knowing that justice will be done one day. It just won't necessarily be done in our time. But the cost is higher than anyone can imagine. Not sure if it's just greed. I'm getting by just fine with my pay, but I feel like I should get paid more. Any case, since the company broke record profits, we got a pizza party. A pizza party is a common sort of solution to keep the masses happy. It does not work. If anything, it makes people bitter. Okay, so let's add this into the scene. Let's see how this looks. Probably have to change the texture around a little bit. So when I was working at a TV station a couple years ago, and I showed up to my work, and one day we got we were told that we were going to have a monthly gathering in which everyone would be able to participate in the food that the company would buy. Sometimes it was pizza, more likely it was from the company that they had just recently made a business deal with. And they would have tacos some days, they would have lasagna others, they would have a lot of different variety. Well, that happened for a couple of months, and then the company realized, dang, this is actually kind of expensive. And so they started getting only pizza. Because, you see, if you make a deal with a pizza company, you make a pizza party favorable because it costs, and I do not joke with this, back in 2012 money, 2010 money, it was 1/4 to make an entire large pizza. That was labor included. 25 cents to make that. So if you're a company and you make a deal with your local pizza vendor and you say, hey, I'll do it to cost and I'll give you some free advertising money. Oh, well, that's a pretty good deal. So the two businessmen make out like bandits, and everybody else is told like, hey, look, we just got you a really expensive event. I mean, do you realize how much pizza costs? We paid hundreds of dollars for all this pizza. No, you didn't. You technically paid like a few bucks, maybe $5 for an entire company. And you probably did some sneaky thing on the side that meant that you didn't even have to pay that. Yes, that happened. I'm just waiting one day until somebody kind of gets called out for that. But no one's going to, as long as, bigwigs keep making their profits and nobody is paid to question it. 25 cents, which in today's money would be about 50 cents per pizza, which is still wicked cheap. There's a reason why they chose pizza parties and not something else. Could you imagine if they brought in steak? See, the profit margins are so low for them in that case that they would not make a whole lot of money with that. Everything's a business deal. Okay, now what happened there? Oh. Dagnabbit. I forgot I had this on auto key. Phooey. Well, gotta reposition that. At work, since the bosses are in a good mood, I filled a petition to allow us to work at our desks. Almost everyone agreed. The succubs disagreed, claiming it would degrade efficiency. That's the debate in our workplace now. Well, that's interesting. Wait, not work. I meant eat at our desk. Ah, that would make sense. We're not allowed to bring food inside the production floor. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Yeah. Man, now I'm craving steak. Yep. It's pretty tasty. When I worked at Amazon, we had very strict rules about eating on the property. So the building was huge. It was such a big building that there were actually clouds that would form inside the building. Now it was more like a fog, but you could see them hanging along the ceiling. Big building. You could have fit Disneyland in there multiple times over. Well, trying to get into work was very tough because you were not allowed to clock in when you got to the building. You had to clock in like 50 feet from your workstation. They did not want to spend any extra money if they didn't have to. So that meant that, well, you better not spend all that time walking. And, wait a minute. Deny. The trick worked. The bot was beaten. The bot came in and tried to use the banned word, and lo and behold, the bot got destroyed. But so that meant that during lunch, which you had 30 minutes, you had to spend 10 minutes of that walking out of the building. Yes, it took a long time walking out of that building. So, yeah, good luck. So you get out and you would try and eat as fast as you could just so you could walk back in. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. They found a way to increase their profits, all right. Congratulations, Bezos, for yet again proving that you're such a great, wise, and caring leader, and how you probably deserve all of that money that you've been collecting. It couldn't possibly be seen as blood money one day. Foreshadowing. I do think Jeff Bezos is going to get in serious trouble one day. When people start to finally put two and two together, he's going to be ruined. That's why he's so invested into charities. I think he knows down deep that he's messed up bad. And so thus he's like, oh, well, I'm going to be a very caring guy. Yeah, I'm going to be the one donating to all these different causes. Yeah, because your gut is telling you there's something wrong with what you did. You killed the American business. You pushed all of our business overseas and fired all of our people here. And then on top of that, now you're all upset because other people are beating you in your own game. Yes. Bezos, you failed. And now you're like, dang, I spat on people back at home and now people elsewhere are actually starting to beat me at my own game. Surprise, buddy. But yeah, 10 minutes to walk in and out. So obnoxious. I feel like the reason they're so against it is that the sales of our canteen would drop massively, as I picture everyone would bring, sell, trade their food in the product floor. Fun for the employees, bad for business in general. I know that Jeff is not doing it because he's a nice person. Jeff Bezos is doing it for the tax write-off. Yep. Isn't that interesting? He gets a tax write-off, like, in that's just infuriating to me, that you can have a tax write-off when you're that rich. And then you complain about how people need to be taxed more. It's like, buddy, you found the cheat code. What you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate your competition. Just own up to it. Because that really is what they're doing. I'm really not liking that wood texture. The wood texture is just ugly. The charity is probably a tax dodge too. Yep. Absolutely. Let's get rid of this displacement, see if that fixes it. Yeah, that helps. right, let's darken that up a little bit. There's a great story I heard about a businessman who heard about one of his employees that was not doing so well, and so he actually went out and found a way to help solve one of the problems that the employee was dealing with. You don't get that with Bezos or any of these other big elites in their ivory castles. They don't care about that stuff. To them, you're a bad person if they have to step out of their ivory tower to deal with something. All right, so before we do that, grab all that and double check that there's no keyframe. Perfect. Save that. Go back over to the scene and let us see how that looks. All right, so we need another box. This one will just raise up there like that. Perfect. That should be good enough. All right, let's bring this back so we can have it in real time. All right, now time to refine the duck. Literally legal slavery. Yeah. Jeff Bezos is the most creating legal monster I've seen in this century. Man, he is a messed up fella. He's so nice that his employees are being watched by machine learning algorithms to determine who's the most productive and gets penalties if they did not meet machine god expectations. You know what's really funny is that Bezos never actually worked before in his life. He labored hard to get Amazon set up. He was basically given the keys to everything. Like, if you look into his background, he's incredibly corrupt. And he just took advantage of our system. He basically got funded off of other people's money. Did he make something? Yeah, he was the first. No duh. No duh, you're going to be considered a genius because you're the first. I can code Amazon from the ground up. The early iteration of that, peanuts compared to what you can do now. But they were the first. You know, there's a story that I have routinely thought about. This is actually a very important thing when you think about human history. I want you to think about this. If Edison had not made the light bulb, would we be still reading and writing by candlelight? If Edison had never lived, would we still be reading by candlelight? Here's the answer. No, we would be reading next to a light bulb. But wait a minute, Edison made the light bulb, right? Yes, he did. But then that means that if we had no Edison, then there would be no light bulb. No, we would have a light bulb. See, there's a factor that people don't consider, and that is that it is the appropriate time of history for something to happen. Now, what am I referring to? There was a family friend that we have that told me about a relative of theirs. It was their great, I think it was their great great grandfather. He was in the he was along the East Coast, and he had a breakthrough, brand new piece of technology. He ran over to the patent office to be able to have his patent solidified. I'll tell you what that patent was in a moment. Probably lamps. Oh wait, never mind. Tesla got the idea. I misunderstood the story. Sorry. No. See, now that's the thing. Most people are going to think that we would have been by lamps. Why? Because we've been propagandized to think that. But here's the thing. The family friend had this genius idea, and they ran over to the patent office. What was their genius idea? A telephone. See, on his way to the patent office with this brand new telephone, he stopped by a bar to get himself a drink. He was so excited. He finally had done something that was going to be special, that was going to be unique, that was going to make him not seem like a crazy kook. He got drunk and passed out. He woke up that next morning and he found out that somebody else by the name of Alexander Graham Bell had just gotten his patent given over to the government. He lost out by hours. Oh, but it couldn't have possibly been that way, right? Maybe that story was made up. There's actually been many times in history where multiple people get the same idea at the same time. I have written down ideas, and I find out years later somebody else had come up with the same idea around the same time. Technology would not have been any different if Tesla or Edison or Einstein had never existed. It was the transformation of the times. You see, multiple things come together for a technology to take off. Just because you have a light bulb doesn't mean that the person who's making the light bulb was being revolutionary. No, it's the people that made the electricity, who made the wiring, that were revolutionary. But even so, they weren't necessarily the revolutionary ones. Somebody else before them figured out something that they sprung board off of. It was designed to where the times were ready for that technology to come about. It wouldn't have been just been one person. It was a collective of people that all came to the same realization, and there was a mad rush to try and come up with it first. You know what's really funny is that I've actually heard that story about the telephone from yet another guy, and he was over in England, and he missed out on it by just a short amount of time. So yeah, there's many people across the world that will come up with the same idea around the same time. Bezos is not smart. He's not revolutionary. He just got in first. It changes a lot of how you see the world when you think about stuff like that. You suddenly realize that, you know what? There are things that really are meant to be. And I do believe that. There's a lot of stuff where it's like God has orchestrated that around this time a technology is going to take off. The steam engine should have come about in the Greek the Greek Renaissance, and it didn't. Why? They had the technology. They saw the potential. They didn't. It was hundreds of years later, well, thousands of years later, technically, before Steam technology finally took off. Looks at Apple, looks at Windows, looks at Apple. Yep, that checks out. I want to know, instead of who was first, I want to know what they did to make sure that their competition failed. That's probably a more important question to be having. What if we were to find out that the people that are coming up with all this revolutionary technology are just the most cutthroat of them all? I've heard some horrible things behind, like, the car companies. If you want to see a very painful video, a very painful movie about the history of the automobile industry, watch Tucker. It is sobering what the car companies did to the man. He came up with all these revolutionary ideas, and they were like, nope, we don't want that. And they tried everything to take him down. And they succeeded. And lo and behold, his technology still panned out, but he wasn't the one that was given the credit for it. Looks at Facebook. Looks at Friendster and MySpace. Yeah, you guys tried. You know the big thing about Facebook and what we believe Amazon is that they got government backing. That to me is cheating. It's like, you really want to come up with an idea? Sure, that's great. Come up with an idea. But it shouldn't be at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer. It shouldn't be at the expense of any taxpayer, honestly, because there are some shifty things about even other people's taxes that are getting utilized. It should not be the case, but it is, and it really shouldn't be. The duck is looking great. It's so cute. And it's a fairly simple duck, so thankfully it's panning out. But man, it is indeed quite challenging to try and pull this off. And it's this is the reason why these exercises are so important, in my opinion. You learn so much by doing it. All right, now we can do the part that I really wanted to do. You grab all these, and then you change it to Bezier curve. And now let's see how this looks. By the way, warning, this will not guaranteed to look good. Doesn't look very good, does it? This is the problem of this process, but it actually is still helpful. See, now we have all the keyframes roughly where it needs to be, and we have the timing down. So now we can go back and refine the keyframes easily. Well, at least a lot easier than what it was. So, here we go. Gonna grab These bones here. Let's see here. Let's start off with the base, because the motion of the duck down here is going to be important for being able to make sure it looks natural everywhere else. See, now this one's going to be an easy one because it's almost good enough right here. So the other parts are going to be a lot more challenging. So this one right here, there's a little bit of a challenge here. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab these, and I'll show you what this process will look like. So right here, he's stepping down off of a little ledge here that you can't really see, but it's just supposed to cause him to drop the sandwich a little bit. So he does that, but we need a little bit of a hard collision there. So we're going to drag this out because I think this is the one that we need. Yep. And now shorten that down. Just makes it a little bit more clumsy. And we'll do the same thing for this right here. And what does this one control? Actually, we're going to soften this one a little bit. And now we need the Z axis here. A little bit of a bounce back. All right, there we go. I think this is just a theory, but I think Elon Musk purchased Twitter to prevent a giant like Facebook from acquiring it first. It's just an idea that I thought of. It's a win-win scenario for him. He gets a platform which can rival Facebook, and Facebook purchased it from him for a larger sum. It looks great to me. Well, much appreciated. It's like an ice sculpture forming. So, it's interesting. There are a lot of theories as to why Elon Musk purchased Twitter. And the one I personally lean into a bit more, and this is because recently of the things he's been doing with it, I think he really did get it for the AI potential and for the for crowd control. There's some really shifty things about what Twitter's being turned into, what X is being turned into. And I'm somebody who actually likes a lot of the changes that have come to the platform. But this last year, it's been getting worse and worse. Granted, all the other platforms are getting worse and worse too, so it's not like it's any different. But it is very interesting to see. All right, now that we have those phones, we're going to hide them. Motion passes, clear those. All right, so next we're going to grab these, this one right here. Smooth out this motion, and we're just going down the chain from the base of the body to the neck. Mostly because the stuff we really have to refine are the tips of everything else. Imagine Facebook's crowd control if they acquired Twitter. It would be pretty bad. I do agree. It would be a nightmare. I've always been worried about how these tech companies just keep getting bigger and bigger. And nobody's putting a stop to it. Now, I'm not somebody who believes that government intervention helps in many cases, but in this it does. See, the government's supposed to protect the people. That's their first job and your country dies if it doesn't. If billionaires have the ability to destroy your nation from its roots, does that not count as needing involvement from the government? Now, granted, that can make a lot of problems. You can imagine that the government's not necessarily going to have the best intentions either. But neither do these billionaires. And the problem is that we can vote politicians in and out. We don't get a vote for these billionaires. And so when they kill competition, like what happened to Parler, somebody needs to step in. I'm not liking how these tech companies just have been given free reign, and people are like, oh, that's an afterthought. We'll fix it later. Will you? Will you really fix it later? Do you have any motivation to want to fix it? Or are you just too happy that the Congress gets kickbacks for all that stuff? Yeah, we're looking at you, Nancy Pelosi. You and your stocks. Sure must be nice having as much money as those people do, and no remorse for the things that they, for the way that they behave. Don't envy evil people, but man, it sure is frustrating to see evil thrive as much as it does. And yeah, I do think a lot of these people are evil. They've kind of proven it over the last couple of years with how they behave. There is someone or something, it's an organization as old as time, and it's a random site full of anonymous people fueled by chaos and random individual beliefs. A virtual bulletin board, 4chan. I'm surprised that people of 4chan bands together to accomplish so much at so little time, at short time, when things get out of hand. I swear if there is a shadow cult controlling the people from the shadows, they're probably there. So I've been thinking about that. Like, how do people organize? How is it that all these very corrupt people all seem to get the same ideas at the same time? And, you know, I think I actually understand why. It's kind of a similar sort of revelation that I had with the realization that technology is going to still progress regardless, and that it doesn't stop just because one person doesn't necessarily contribute. Yeah, now it slows it down a little bit, just maybe by a couple of months or years, but not much. Well, what would potentially be organizing all these people? Is it a secret cult? Is it really a cult that has unified all the big leaders of the world to all agree to do the same things? Not really. I mean, can you imagine the chaos of a meeting like that? Everyone would be vying for power. Everyone would be cutthroat. No, there's something else that's going on. And I think it's a lot more simple than, and also more complex than people realize. There's one individual in history that has the ability to organize people en masse. And it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter what era or culture or language, they all answer to the same thing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what a Christian would refer to as the devil. The devil has the great unifying power to get all these people to jump for him. They don't even realize it. They don't even have to plan. He's the planner. And he puts it into these people's hearts to want to do things. And they just conveniently coordinate because they weren't the ones in charge. Especially when you see how dumb some of these people are. It's like you couldn't figure out how to put your shoes on correctly, let alone figure out this giant conspiracy. But there is someone who is very, very smart, and it does make me think that is the devil. Bastion says Mickey Mouse. Oh, the devil, of course. Good one there, Bastion. I mean, there are some similarities there. Credit card companies bending the knee to extremists and using them as a means to censor games. Well, 4chan, let's for them. Floods their service centers with calls and repetitive emails. They're now backpedaling from the censorship. Expect it to return. It will return in full force again, but it's going to be in a different angle. I'm going to get myself some more water. Be right back. So I said that the censorship is going to return. Now, understand me when I say I do not like censorship. I think that secrets and censorship makes things worse. Let me preface this by saying that. All right. I don't want censorship. But I became aware of something a couple years ago. I've kind of been sitting on it because it's not the right time, and not anyone's really going to. Well, it wasn't the right time beforehand. I think we're reaching the point where people have to kind of start thinking about it. There was a report that came out that was looking into some of the most heinous crimes that had taken place in our country. There's an increasing number. Now, it's not the majority yet, but there's an increasing number of people that have, in their own words, been radicalized by stuff that they did in games. Now, there was a guy who will remain nameless, but if you've been around for a while, you know this guy, and that would probably be Bastion that would know this. There's a guy that I came across who played a torture game. It was very, very graphical. It was very painful to kind of see. It's like he was delighting in the torture of others. It was a game solely about harm. And now, granted, they said, oh, well, there's a story behind it. All it was hearing things scream. It was seeing blood. It was seeing guts. It was all about causing agony. A couple of months later, this guy would cause horrible things to become a fallout of my involvement with YouTube groups. To him, the world was an experiment, and he was the puppet master that could do all sorts of terrible things. And he had no concept, no ethical values that would have told him, like, hey, you've crossed a line. To him, life was a game. Now that could have been a one-off, but I've actually heard this from multiple people about things that have happened in similar ways. Some of the worst shootings of the last couple of years, they've actually found them to have had an obsession with certain types of games. Not all games, just certain types, ones that leaned into the harm and the suffering. There were 2 girls when I was living in Ohio. I won't go into the details because, this is being streamed. But 2 girls that ended up trying to take their friend's life because they were trying to appease a video game. Censorship will come back, but it's not going to come in the way that they've currently done it. It's going to come back when this report finally gets released. People have been watching, people have been biding their times as they've been collecting all the data. It will happen. And that part, it's going to be tough. I know a lot of people that when they see some of these things, they're going to freak out. Because there's something about delighting in harm that I think crosses a line. Now, I'm somebody who loves war games. I come from a military family. I don't have a problem with that. But it's when it crosses a line into the suffering and mutilation that I'm like, okay, this is going to get banned one day. And I think that's going to become the new angle that they approach this with. We'll see. I know it's a very controversial thing, especially among online communities. But then again, I've also been known to be controversial and that sort of stuff. But it is something where I actually have some personal experience with this and what I've seen with other folks. And so I don't know if that's necessarily going to actually pan out in that way. But I definitely know there's a lot of people that are kind of like waiting for the opportunity to address this. And I do realize that they're kind of waiting for their next attempt to try and pull this off. So we will see. We will see what happens. I'm not sure what's with 4chan and how they seem to be the ones coming up with out-of-the-box solutions to difficult problems, such as what was mentioned above. I think if you're a company, organization, that last thing you want to be is on their scopes. Well, now 4chan messed up one thing, and this is the part that they're going to be suffering with. They have lost the tech race. Now, they're still very smart people over there, but I think that they've started, it really does feel like they've started to lose against bigger entities. Because if I remember right, they got hacked earlier this year, which is kind of an indicator that other entities are starting to get their number, you could say. I'm not liking what that could potentially mean. I think 4chan has done a lot of good things. They've also done a lot of really weird things, but they definitely have been big supporters of keeping the internet uncensored. A lot of people that I know that actually had their voices restored as a result of that. So definitely gonna say that they have had their impact. For some people, it's been great. For other people, not so much, especially if you're on the receiving end of the 4chan folks. They want their anarchy. Yep. Yep, that's indeed true. Everything can be used for good or evil. And I wonder if 4chan will be remembered as a force of good, or if in a couple years it's going to be seen as a voice of chaos. I really don't know. But I do know that the opinions people have of them are all over the place. I think that they've done a whole lot of good, but they've also caused a whole lot of headaches. I remember like a couple years ago, whenever there was like something fringe that people were unaware of, they were on top of it. They would say, oh yeah, no, we know about it, and here's all the proof to be able to cite like why it's a problem. And they were on top of it. Now, granted, there are some people that took that in the wrong way, and they actually started forging information, which that becomes quite a problem for obvious reasons. So here's a question for you folks. If you were to if you were saying there's one thing that should be censored, or let's say two things, because I know there's a couple of really easy go-tos. So if we'll put two. If there's two things that if you're told like, hey, we need to censor this, that you would say, absolutely, we need to censor this particular thing. And if not, and after that, if you mention like, kind of think about what is something you think should not be censored at any cost. I think it's good to think about both sides of the coin by actually saying, hey, there's something that like crosses a line. Now, a lot of people, it's cultural. For example, over in China, they cannot stand blood, and it's actually not because they're trying to cover it up, like government trying to control them. It's actually cultural, and it's actually interesting because Chinese people have a panic that takes over if they see things related to death. And so it's actually a cultural thing that reaches back centuries, millennia even. And so when they're like, hey, we can't have this stuff on here, they have to censor like certain types because otherwise it might trigger this superstition that they have. Versus over in Europe, they have completely different set of values. Over here in the US, same thing. Human rights. I feel like Civil War would start if they start censoring human rights. That's a very real possibility. Now, I also know there's a lot of people that are committing atrocities against human rights, and not much is happening. It's baffling to me. There's a report that came out. Now, I'm not going to say it openly, just because right now apparently it's fairly sensitive still. But there's a report that came out that they found some people that are in our country that were doing horrible things to people in the hospital. If you've not seen the report yet, believe me, it's gross. It is one of the worst. I heard about this a couple years ago, but something terrible has transpired. And I do say we are in a bad way if we let that slide. It is a human rights violation like no other. And that was here in country. It's important to maintain values, no matter what walk of life you're in. Because it's a very slippery slope to doing horrible, horrible things if you start to open up that door. Oh, but it's just this one time? Yeah, that's what they all say. It's just this one time. You'll never have to do it again. Oh, surprise. You have to do it again. And people suffer. We always end off our streams by saying, be civil to one another. What can be any more... What could be like one of the things that we just absolutely need? We need civility so much. And one of the big reasons is because we're getting cold to one another. We're not valuing each other. We're not looking at each other and saying, hey, you know what? You matter in the scheme of life. You matter, and we want to make sure that you actually get to have that honor and value. Companies are abandoning it. Even our government's abandoning it in many ways. But the one thing we can do is that we can always say, you know what? I'm still going to have value for my neighbors. I'm going to have value for my friends and family. You don't need somebody else to follow through with being civil. You can start that process, and you will be able to start to break that cycle of madness. I'm traumatized of a video I watched as a tryout to content moderation for Facebook Meta. I can't stand torture. Yeah. I can't stand it either. When I was on... I hate Facebook. The video was an eye-opener for me to the madness and pain humans can do to one another. Yes. See, when I hear people arguing about, oh, well, we shouldn't be censoring stuff, those people are blissfully naive. I grew up in a history family. We traveled the world We got to understand what causes conflicts. We got to understand the reason for human suffering, and we got to see horrible places that, even as a young kid, I was like, I do not need to learn anymore. When I became an adult, I started noticing a lot of people saying, well, that's a form of entertainment. We need human suffering. The gladiators back in ancient Rome were doing the same sort of thing. There was a historian during the time of Rome who went to the Colosseum, and he had a quote that has rung true ever since. It was that the idea of bread and circus was appealing, and even to the most ethical and upstanding citizen, the games became a draw. There was something to be found in the roar and the thundering crowds and seeing the blood of the gladiators out on the field. And then he took a step back and realized everyone was cheering for the suffering of a human being. And suddenly he said, this will destroy our empire one day if we do not stop this. He was not wrong. See, it's not the fact that they were just harming people that were slaves, which were subhuman to them. It was that they were obsessed with suffering and pain. We're becoming obsessed with suffering and pain in many ways, and the internet has woken a lot of us up to that. There's speaking of things on Facebook, there was a video that made me not use Facebook for a year. And it was somebody who got horribly tortured. And I didn't see but a few seconds of it. And as I'm in the process of trying to report it, I hear the screaming because the video keeps playing. I'm like, this is horrible. I finally just closed out the phone. I'm like, but I want to be able to report this. And so I try and find it again, and it was glitching, and then it started recommending more. I hate Facebook for that. X is doing the same thing recently in some ways. So yeah, there's censorship sounds terrible until you realize there's some things where for your society's well-being that you're like, you know what? You probably need to censor this. Now, you shouldn't censor the news because, well, if there's human atrocities taking place, you have to know that they exist. But you shouldn't have it for the average public. There should be a big warning sign on it saying, hey, this is a report from the front lines. But the things that, yeah. But there's entire accounts that are getting paid doing that. There was a guy on YouTube that did that. He made a massive amount of money by torturing animals. And YouTube was like, oh, well, it's freedom of speech. Torturing animals? No, it is not. It's not killing an animal. It was torturing an animal. No, that is not permitted. I don't care what people say. Until they can go out and see actual human suffering and then say with a cold stare that no, yeah, we definitely should not have censorship. Those people have been have not been aware of what humanity can do. What it has done. And what it will do again. Which, by the way, there's some pretty bad stuff happening globally, so always got to be wary about that sort of stuff. Same, like I thought myself to be strong-willed, but I swear that video was so graphic it made me vomit on the HR floor. It's a sample video of what we would be encountering on a daily basis. Just thinking about it now made me shiver, like I want to run away. You know, that makes a lot of sense. There's a video, I will not go into the detail of it, but it was a video about AI. This video came out many years ago. I won't even say the same year because I don't want people to be hunting for it. But a video came out and a friend showed me it. He said it was his favorite short film he had ever seen. In it, there was a robot that glitches and does a horrible, horrible act. It terrified me. For the first time, I realized the threat of AI is not AI becoming smart. It's AI being programmed and glitching. That's what made me suddenly become very worried about AI. It is a tool that someone of very, very corrupt means can be able to harm others with. I've wondered whether or not it'd be good to like show people that video one day. And then I started looking into it, and then I immediately got sick, and kind of like you, I wanted to run away. I wanted to vomit. When I watched it the first time, I had so many panic attacks over the following 2 weeks. I stopped eating in some cases. I was, every time I started to close my eyes, I would jerk awake. That's how traumatizing that video was. I have never been traumatized like that before or since. And, man, it changed my world. And honestly, that's exactly what the filmmaker intended. But it was done with such darkness that he lost people. If he had made it just a little bit more benign, it probably would have done a lot better. But it was too graphical. It was too dark. Don't show it to people. It's best that we don't open Pandora's box. It looks like we have the same experience, indeed. Indeed. I do think that there will be serious consequences for people that make a lot of that darkness. But it also may never happen, at least not within our lifetime. But I do know that a lot of people are starting to wake up to the realization that a lot of darkness is... that a lot of our society has become incredibly dark. It's one of the reasons why it's so important to try and lighten things up. Now, there are some people, they want to lighten things up so much that they kind of ignore problems because they don't want to be controversial. Oh, I don't want to touch that. Why? Because, it makes people feel icky, and I don't want to do that. How about let's be sober-minded, folks? Let's not be deceived. And that means that we have to stay on top of things, but don't dwell in the darkness. Don't basically sit in the presence of darkness. Let's wage war against it. When I was a teenager, early teenager, my parents showed me a movie, and it was a comedy. Now, this goes to kind of like what I mentioned about there's a human suffering I can't stand. In the film, there was jokes about human suffering, and it showed people that were perishing, and it was the punchline. And I was like,
stood up and I walked out of the room, and my parents are like, what's the big deal? It had not clicked in their minds yet what it was that they were showing, because to them, that was a cultural movie to them. And it wasn't until later on they're like, dang, that actually was pretty dark. We all were learning in that process. And it was just, I was very sensitive to it because I'd grown up in the light. To me, the shadows were very foreign to me. And so for them to kind of be introduced to it in that sense was shell-shocking to all of us. By the way, my friend laughed at me for failing the test. He said it's the easiest job if you have an open mind. I was like, an open mind? What the hell? Yeah. Yep, that's... There's a lot of people in this world, they think that somehow mockery is helping their argument. No. No, it's not. I'm no stranger to the darkness, but the depths of evil, where you just commit evil because you can, like imagining being denying death when the other person is still demanding more. That's like, yeah, that video made me terrified of people. Such an eye-opener that people like that could exist. You know, it's interesting. There are a lot of people who will ridicule cats as being, cruel and hurtful because they are very efficient hunters. Now, I think cats are wonderful. I love cats. And I think that their hunting techniques are maybe a bit more brutal in terms of the animal kingdom. But the thing is that there's a lot of animals they also don't necessarily maim in the same way. But when it comes to people, people have true dark tendencies. It's pretty easy for somebody who is aware of human behavior to realize that you don't just let human beings kind of go wild, because they will, if given the opportunity, they will choose the darker path. And I think it's important as us as a society to realize that that sort of stuff begins with the parents. It begins with their friends. There was a child that I was sitting next to on an airplane flight, and I was kind of wanting to watch an action movie because I had not seen an action movie in a while, and it was going to be a long flight. And there was a kid next to me, and there's this kid next to me, probably about 5-6 years old, very young. The mother was forcing her child to have to go through a book that was mentioning about how to be strong and independent. The little girl who was being forced to go through this book just wanted to play with her doll. Her doll was in her hands, and the mother kept pushing it aside so she could be able to read this superhero book. You could see that child didn't want anything to do with that. Halfway through the flight, around the time that I was thinking about watching the movie, the mother pulled out a movie to watch on her iPad. And I glanced at it, and I was like, oh, that's a weird one. She chose I don't know the name of it, but she chose a spy movie. And the little bit that I saw of it, there were people being blown to pieces, guts everywhere, and people being beheaded. The little girl was squirming. She would not watch it. She hated it. And the mother was forcing her to watch this. Well, the mother fell asleep, and she would not watch it. And she tried to change to a cartoon. And the mother switched it back. She woke up, noticed that she wasn't watching the movie, and switched it back. Her mother was intentionally trying to force this child to grow up when they were really, really young. When all they wanted was to be a child. Well, I saw this this unfolding, and so I reached over on my screen and switched it to a cartoon. That little girl's eyes were glued onto that screen. It didn't matter. She would not watch the other stuff. She just kept glancing over. She was like, her face was looking at the screen like her mother was telling her to, but her eyes were looking over at the cartoon. Now, in our culture, it's become impossible to address a parent like that. If I was to say something, the parent would have probably been at the ready with a lawyer. She looked like that type of person. But that child is going to be destroyed by that mother's decisions. It's so important to remember that there are consequences to what we do. Yeah, she would have chewed you up. Absolutely. Working with those people, it's more terrifying that they work in groups, yeah. Being able to show kindness to one another is a skill that I thought was fairly common. I grew up with that sort of idea, like, hey, you know what? Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you have to hate them. You can be kind to them and still disagree with them. Not so much in our culture now. Kind of like that motion. It's a little unrefined, but that's not quite what I thought was going to happen. Okay, let's get rid of that keyframe. There we go. This is actually much better. It's really fast right there, so I might have to soften that out a little bit. -5. Move this one -2, -1. There, it's just a little bit slower. It's going to be all the more important, especially as people kind of lose their minds in this age of madness, to be the ones that are still, regardless, going to be loving and kind. It's going to be very, very easy for people to just brush aside each other in order to behave poorly. We're going to need, as a culture, to say, you know what? Sure. Is it necessarily going to be the easiest way to go about it? No. But we need to be able to say that we're going to stand up as a society to this madness. And it's going to be frustrating. We're not going to win brownie points, but our society will be grateful for it, and our kids will be even more grateful. Being able to summon a lawyer sounds like something you do in RPG. Not so fast, Kaiba. I summon lawyer. Yes. Card game, not RPG, but... I don't want to live in a society to see everything become like China. That's why it makes it important to care about our local community. Our society has the very real possibility of changing on us. But our local community can be a lot stronger than that. I remember hearing about a village in Europe. Several wars took place, and the village was perfectly fine. No one perished. They had good food. And they barely even knew that there was wars. The princes of this world may wage wars, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to be affected the same way. Our society can change, but if our community stays strong and good, well, it doesn't matter what sort of dark forces come down the way. We'll be able to stand against it a lot better. We kind of need to start from the ground up. Because we can't change things from the top down. We really do have to change things from the bottom up. And that means our society has to basically be restarted in a way from the ground up in our local communities. Because if you try and restart from a national level, you end up in revolution. And then you kind of lose the moral victory. But if you start locally, you have the ability to make a lot more changes with less problems, in my personal opinion. The only reason you can't do it on a national level is because the evil Jeff from sales is going to cut costs of the initiatives to make it possible. Yep. You gotta beware the evil Jeff. Vote for the good Jeff, not the evil Jeff. Everybody wants to have, let's see here. Everybody wants to have, the ability to avoid the terrible and evil Jeffs, but it's also important to remember to look for the good Jeffs in the world.
My name is Jeff.
Oh, really?
Who the fuck is Jeff?
Man, this makes this process so much easier. It may not look faster to begin with, but it will get much faster. It is much faster based upon past experiences. I spent a whole lot of time this last year doing animations the other way of just doing direct to curves, and it was obnoxious. By doing it this way, it makes it easier to control. They're going to question why $1,000 is needed to teach kids, and would sue the project leader and replace it with more effective leader who could do it for $100 allegedly. Yep. By the way, I found out that actually I won't go into that. That'll be for another time because it'll take too long to cover. Then they go, oh no, the project fails. No one is, project failed. No one has seen this, how it could have happened. Such tragedy. It's a bad idea to begin with. Staring at the ethics guy face palming in the corner. How many of us, if we had the opportunity, would do something that we don't like just because it's the right thing? And then realize the number of people in business that would do the same thing are near zero. What? I don't make a profit? Why would I ever want to do that? What? This isn't going to get me reelected? Why would I want to do that? I swear this has happened time and time again. Like I know when there's excess, some higher up will swoop in and would quote, and quote being an yeah. Imagine being actually, wait a minute, stand by just a second. There's something glitched here. There we go. Imagine being in one of those positions. It's easy for us to be. I heard someone say how oh, it's easy for you to criticize people at the top because you're not at the top. You're right. It is easy for me to do that without having to deal with the consequences somebody at the top would have to deal with. But I will say this. If you're at the top and someone at the bottom knows when you've messed up, is that because the people at the bottom don't understand, or have you become disconnected because you're at the top? And you think that somehow you're outside of consequences. A lot of these companies, they think that they're outside of the realm of consequences. Oh, we can just buy ourselves out of this problem. It's one of the reasons why there's things in our country right now that have both sides very, very upset. Because there is a sense of disgust that's happening. People at the top always get away with stuff. Been going on for decades. But it raises a lot of questions. Should those people be given a pass because of how they are crucial to how things function? I don't think so, because, well, in the end, if you can't hold the line, if you're at the top, how can you ever expect somebody at the bottom of the totem pole to have to abide by rules that you yourself don't have to adhere to? And that's crucial, especially for our businesses, which think that somehow they can just magically buy off everything at all the. They can then buy themselves a get out of jail free card. That just absolutely disgusts me. And I don't care who somebody's background is, there's a sense of understanding that just because you can do something doesn't mean it's good. Now, I grew up learning that. Our culture taught us that. It's the idea of like, hey, there's definite rights and wrongs. And the great thing that makes our nation so great over here in America is that we've had many times in our society where we say, you know what, this is a no-go. And you cannot cross this line. And we have major changes in our country when that sort of stuff happens. Recently, we don't say the same sort of thing. I don't care if somebody is a bigwig. I don't want them to be able to go about and harm somebody, for example. Kind of like how in China, if you are, there are certain types of cars that if you get run over with a certain type of car, you're not allowed to press charges because it belongs to somebody of power, somebody of wealth. And so you could lose a family member and you can't get any justice for them because they come from a class that is outside of yours. Here in America, traditionally, it's been that everybody is under the law, and even businesses that think that somehow they can be able to lawyer up and protect themselves. Even they were technically able to be criminally prosecuted and for the little man to still win. Last couple of decades has really changed that. Like, I remember when I was growing up, I would hear about these lawsuits that would take place and companies would change their policy. Now companies change their policy because they're trying to make sure that nobody can challenge them. And they'll do lawsuits in order to try and break people so they can't get the proper lawyers that will potentially ruin their business. Now, what's the problem part here? Now let's calculate these bones right here. Oh yeah, that's a bit messy. I really like this tool. I wish you could just grab the points though and move them about. Hell no, they should be given a pass, but at the same time, they shouldn't be given a pass, but at the same time, politics is so messy and expensive. If the system fails, the guy troubleshooting it will have a migraine as everybody would be pointing the finger at each other. It is true. Although, it's kind of funny. I think a lot of their headaches are self-inflicted. Alright, so this thing's getting amplified. Let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. I was walking down the street a couple of years ago, And there was it was a beautiful fall day, and I had some relatives traveling, and I was watching after their dog. And I was walking down the street, taking the dog on a walk. We went to the park, and then we were on our way back, and we passed by this guy's lawn. And as we're walking past it, the dog just smells one of the poles around there, and then we're starting to walk on. And this guy comes shouting and stomping over about how terrible I was for bringing the dog around, and that somehow the dog had was going to be urinated on his property. And oh, that's so terrible. But you better be glad I'm such a caring and kind-hearted guy, because otherwise I'd be dragging you all the way to court and whatnot. I looked at the guy and was like, you do realize that dog hasn't done anything right now. He's like, but I know what you are about ready to do. You better just move along, because I'm such a nice guy. I'm going to let you go. Someone like that does not have an understanding about the impact that they have on their community. First off, the guy's an idiot. I'm not saying that because he shouted at me. I'm saying it because he lives in Alaska. We are in a property, we're in an area where your property is the toilet of the wildlife. If you get upset with one person's dog who didn't go on their yard, what are you going to do when a moose comes along and decides to leave something even more destructive? What are you going to do when a wolf pack comes along and utilizes your home? What are you going to do when a bear comes along and decides to leave a great big pile in your front lawn? This is Alaska. And it was fall. His yard was about ready to die because of the cold weather. Imagine the bear yet. There are some things in this world that are worth getting upset about. If you see somebody being tortured, that's worth getting upset about. Do not look the other way. Do not allow that to stand. Say, you know what? No, this is where I draw a line. If you see something where somebody's walking their dog, is it really worth it to try and make that the thing that you get upset about? Now, there's a little bit more to the story, and I kind of skipped over that because I was trying to make a point, but it's worth still bringing up. That happened at the tail end of the pandemic. It was, people were already going around. People are already starting to break out of their shell. But this guy had a very, very hard time with that. I never met the guy before then. I never saw him after. But here's the thing to remember. If one day I found out that he was in a tough bind, am I going to be more inclined to want to look after his well-being when he treats people like that? It's not something we consider, but there are horrible consequences for the actions that we make. And some of them we might not necessarily see until much, much later. Now, it's very easy to be able to say, oh, well, that person obviously doesn't deserve any sort of consideration or things like that. If problems happen, it's their own issue. But if everyone were to do that, we would become like we are right now, cold and hating one another, cut off. You know, this is the most interaction I have had in the last 2 weeks is over the web. I don't talk with my neighbors. I don't even know their names. I don't even know who's living above me. I don't know who's living over in the left apartment. I barely know the person to the right of my apartment. I don't know anybody. Everyone's cut off. The pandemic locked us away, and in many ways, many of us never came back out. If you see someone hurting, regardless of who they are, you should reach out to them. And if you see somebody who slights you, be willing to look the other way and say, you know what? It's not worth getting upset over. Because you never know. You might be the defining moment in someone's life that starts to break them free of the madness. It's my nature not to, it's in my nature to not deny help, but don't treat me like that when I'm giving the aid, because I will literally throw away the med kit out of spite and walk away. Everyone has bad days, and it happens to the best of us. So I got to give a lot of leniency to people. You never know. There was a guy that I worked with back at Amazon. He was a very difficult person to work with. But he was fairly lighthearted. He gave a lot of jokes. He was fairly considerate. Quirky, yes, but he was at least considerate of trying to make sure you understood what was going on. I learned the hard way that someone like him had a breaking point. I just didn't know what it was. One day, one of the employees came up to me and said, hey, because the guy would tell pranks all the time, and so we were going to try and prank him back. The guy was really, really short. And this guy came up and said, hey, I'm going to push this down in about a minute. It's a toy. It's a battery-powered Barbie car for little kids. And he was going to say, I found a car that you can finally fit in. It's kind of funny because the guy was really short. It was funny to kind of think about that. Well, the guy had done pranks left and right, so I thought, oh, well, this is going to be interesting. So he just said to, he shouted out, hey, Mike. I'm going to say his name was Mike. It wasn't Mike. Hey, Mike, I finally found a car that you can fit in. And he held up the Barbie car. And Mike couldn't understand. He was like, George, you know my hearing's all messed up. I can't hear you. And then he looked at me and said, basically, can you tell him the joke? And so I turned around and said, he found a car that you can finally fit in. I expected him to laugh a little bit, because this is the guy that told jokes all the time. I saw him turn beet red. He started quivering with rage. And he started shouting, I'm going to be taking you both to HR if you don't apologize right now. And he went storming up to the guy on the walkway, and I thought he was going to punch him. And he was furious, absolutely furious. And we never interacted with him again. One bad day ruined everything for him. And it was a reminder that some people are going to have a tough time, and you can't necessarily know what's going to set people off. Well, we learned the hard way that to the Joker that there are jokes that he cannot stand. It kind of goes for all of us. We all have something that's going to is going to be a breaking point for us. For him, it was anything that was referring to his height. And I'm guessing it's probably because there was some painful memories in regards to it. Now, I've never had to deal with a height problem. I know there are some people they get very, very upset about when they think about their height. I was born very tall. I was born with naturally a lot of muscle. I don't necessarily exercise the way that I kind of could. I could become a very muscular Viking-looking fella. I didn't choose to go that path. But I have the genes in me to do that. I don't understand the kind of the grief that can happen to people like that. But it is something that does happen to a lot of men. For him, it was a point that I'm sure somebody somewhere, someone that he cared about, probably mocked him for it. And that was the point where he could not recover. So Mr. Jokester, who would joke about all things under the sun, had met his match. Kind of ironic how that happened. But as a reminder, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of those around you, because you don't know what they're going through. And you might learn later on there's more to the story. And you might not necessarily like what you learn about that story. I'd get fired for being an ableist if I did that. I'm mundane, man. The only thing I get insulted with was being poor as a child. I mean, if I was the guy that said the joke, I know Mike in person would have doubled down. Being able to see what other people are dealing with, and to have that kind of restraint, say, okay, that's not worth going to. It's hard to know. Like you can have that natural tendency. Like I very much would never have made a joke like that. But how was I to know? It's the guy that joked with everybody. He gave all sorts of inappropriate jokes, and so it's like, okay, well, this is a relatively fine joke to do. Psych. But it is a reminder that if you can even have a good heart and good tendencies and still end up ruining somebody's day, maybe even worse. There was a guy that I knew at college, And I told him very bluntly that there was a problem. And he looked at me and said, I want to punch you so bad right now. And he was completely honest. Now, he wouldn't have done it because I was more than twice his size. He never would have gotten anywhere close. I've had a guy literally draw a knife on me, and he didn't get very far. So someone that's half my height is not going to be able to punch me unless I really sit down and just let him do it. But the thing is that you can be completely caring and people can misinterpret it in the wrong way. From my friend from the past, which we eventually made up, and he understood that I didn't mean him any harm by that, but it took him a long time to kind of come to terms with that. It took him probably about 4 months until he finally talked to me again. It didn't change the fact that he was in need of help, and it was, interestingly enough, he actually did get help later on that year. And we found out that there was actually something that was more severe going on, so it actually was kind of helpful. But he had heard multiple people kind of try and correct him, and he had kind of a fight or flight mentality. People are challenging you, well, obviously that means you need to fight them over it. No, maybe it's not the best solution. Maybe you just need to be able to say, all right, well, I can at least acknowledge that you have given me advice. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand that you're not trying to be hurtful. But we have a lot of people in our culture that don't think that way. How do we break out of it? We have to break out of it by slowly but surely becoming examples to others about how to escape some of that mentality. This is a tough one to try and do. I really should not have done the neck in this way. I regret doing it in this manner. I should have made an IK chain out of it. I paid the price by not spending it building up the neck. Otherwise, this would have been so much faster. I really get into fights, but when I do, I always don't fight back and more or less find the altercation funny. Like, to me, them just being angry means I already won. If they become physical, I'll just run away. Though there are times where I get caught. Oh no. Be right back. I'm gonna get myself some more water. All right. I rarely go in places where I'm isolated because if it gets out of hand, I want witnesses. That's understandable. If people see me having bruises and the other guy doesn't, yeah, I guess all that in for them. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with that. There's been a couple of times where people have tried to cause problems and they get a look at me and they basically just head for the hills. I've had that blessing, but there was one time where I did actually have a wrestling match. And there's a guy who really wanted to prove himself against me because I was considered like the big and tough guy. Even though I never went like powerlifting and whatnot, I just naturally had a lot of muscle. There would be guys that would come up to me and just want to arm wrestle for my food or my ice cream. So I actually had some people that exercise all the time that would come up and say, "Hey, I'll arm wrestle you for that," and I'd say, "Okay, fine," and I would win. And of course, I got nothing out of it. But it was that there was this realization, like, hey, this guy actually is like big and strong. Well, there was a guy who was a little bit shorter than me who practiced all the time, and he actually had a bitterness about him. He came up to me and said, I want to wrestle and prove that I'm stronger. Like, okay, great, here we go again, sort of thing. I didn't realize the rules of wrestling that he was referring to. See, growing up, I learned from the military that be very, very careful about wrestling and grabbing the neck. If you grab the neck, you very well risk endangering that person, if not potentially forever harming them. What you do in the wrestling could end up destroying them just for a competition. So I was told never do that. Well, this guy had no problem going for the neck. The wrestling match started. He dove for the neck. He put his arms around it and dragged me to the ground. Now, I mentioned I had a whole lot of muscle, but having a guy strangling you on your back was something that I didn't quite expect. And I had all I could do to keep his arm from crushing me. And the thought ran through my head, this guy's actually trying to harm me. And I looked down and I realized I had the ability to bite his arm. He had messed up in how he did his grab. And so if he was going to be doing that, I thought, well, I might as well try and take a bite out of him. But I didn't. There it was, unable to breathe, and it was all I could do. That's it. End the fight. We're done. And he starts saying, tap out, you better tap out. Well, I could barely hear him. I was already having a hard time understanding what was going on. And what's more, I hadn't really heard of this term, tap out. I didn't realize that he meant hit the ground to basically prove that he had won. If I had done that, his arm would have gone full force against my neck. There wouldn't have been an opportunity because I would have been extra damaged. I could already feel my neck was like really starting to hurt. And so finally I pulled it further away, just enough so I could get out a few words. Get off of me, you idiot. Something in the way that it came out, caused him to freak out, and he let go and pulled back. I have no idea what went through his head. But I realized that, I probably came away just barely from having to get like medical treatment for the neck. just because there was that much pressure being applied. I verbally tore into the guy afterwards, and he was acting like he was somehow unaware of what was going on. I'll bet that he had done that with his wrestling coach, things would have not gone so well. So we never quite figured out who was the better wrestler because we had two very different rules in which we were doing our wrestling. But there's something I want to be kind of like the takeaway of that life story. Some people are going to be playing by some different rules, and you don't know necessarily what they're going to be. You can try and guess. No guarantee that you're going to actually understand it. But it's important to be able to remember that, because no matter where you are in life, you can be met with surprises. And sometimes a fight can end up with some pretty weird bruises, and it can be as a result of having different rules of engagement. But it was kind of a lesson to me to kind of stop the people that wanted to come up and keep challenging me. It's like, no, we're done. Because I realized there were people that didn't have a set of rules that they wanted to abide by. And it's like, well, we're just going to call it done. You know, it's kind of interesting. That guy, he lost actually quite a lot by doing that. There were a couple of people that he was had been in the area when they saw that. And his ability to interact with them changed drastically after that moment. People suddenly realized what sort of man he was. And he ended up floundering a lot. I kind of feel sorry for the guy because he kind of went off the deep end. I don't know if he's fully recovered yet. But things like that, it may sound good when in your youth, but it ends up becoming detrimental to you in the long term. Fro's going to install head from Matosa. I would have drop kicked him once he let me go just for attempted murder. Well, it's interesting because to me it felt dangerous. But I realized the faces of the people that were in the area when they saw it, you could tell they knew something was off. Because they weren't cheering. They were just like people had done in the past. Their eyes were just kind of like wide and their mouth agape. Like, what is happening? That my neck caused problems for about a good solid month after that. Just because it's a game to one person doesn't mean that it's a game to another. And that's an important thing to, well, for a lot of folks to kind of remember, even though good luck trying to get folks to actually kind of acknowledge that. If I didn't have to redo the animation, I probably would have gone back to actually redo this neck, just because this neck is causing so many problems. By the way, the amount of time that they spend animating a scene for like a Pixar film, one shot will take them 2 weeks to create. When you see a character on screen and they're on there for about 5-10 seconds, that scene took them 2 weeks of solid work to create. So could I be going faster? Absolutely. But I also realize, compared to the professionals, I'm actually not that far off. I was really hoping to get this finished, but with this neck, it's just taking me too much time. We're gonna have to call it here because I need to still go to work tomorrow. So that means we'll be continuing this again tomorrow night. Hopefully to finish it. I'm not gonna be biting off this much to chew. Kind of like this this goose / duck, whatever it is. How he's biting off more than he can chew. But either way, this is actually quite a lot of improvement. It's not quite as refined as I want it to be, but it's pretty decent for the very short project scope that it was kind of set up. Compared to my other animations, this is one of the less sophisticated ones, but there's some things that actually are first for this, like the process of doing the the keyframing is actually kind of a first for me. I've not done it to this detail for a shot. So every other one was kind of simple in terms of how I did. And this is the first time I'm actually really hardcore doing this. I'm suffering because of my rig choices, not because of the animation technique, thankfully. It's all a work in progress. It's all about learning. All right. Well, anyway, let's see if there is anybody on the Twitch channel we can be able to do a raid for. We're still not raiding on the Rumble side just because I don't think there's actually anybody there. If you're there, please mention something in the chat, but there's also not a whole lot of places to go and raid on the Rumble side. Oh, we got somebody we can go and visit. We got Avid Fair, who is currently live. So we will go over and pay him a visit. Thank you for the stream as always. It's been nice being here. Much appreciated. Thanks for coming by, Inertia, and thanks to Bastion as well, who's was on the YouTube side. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. No matter what happens, be civil to one another, and try your best to share that civility with others. And what's more, if you end up becoming rich and powerful, never forget to maintain that civility. We're looking at you, Bezos, you tyrant. All right. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening. We're going to be raiding on the Twitch side, but we're going to do that after we transition to the end frame. So we will see you all later.